It's time to chill out and get ready for a mediocre Q&A live stream. If you're old enough, grab yourself your favorite adult beverage, and if you're not, stick with apple juice. Put your feet up and relax. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them in the chat. And now let's cue up the intro music. I don't know what is going on with my streaming software. It's just being a pain in the butt. The first time was me, I was joking around, but the second time it just randomly switched over. If you guys don't know, I could get all technical, but I use OBS with Streamlabs, and I have like two screens right here, and one of them is ready to load when I hit the transition button, and for some reason it just switched on its own, but whatever. If any of that sounded like foreign language to you guys, trust me, it's foreign language to me too, because I really have no idea what I am doing here. I have a bunch of buttons and mixing boards and knobs and stuff, and honestly, I don't know how most of it worked. All that I did to start doing this streaming was watched a lot of YouTube videos on how to set up streams, and then I just kind of winged it, and it worked, kind of, you know? But here we are. I haven't really changed much in a long time. It's kind of all been here. And like when it does get messed up, it's a nightmare. But anyways, I hope you guys are doing great. It's Monday. I know Mondays suck. They really do. I look forward to doing the live stream. That's cool. But like Mondays are hard for me because the stress, like I'm a very stressed out person always, right? And I like to be early and stuff. So, if I'm in my office by 3 o'clock p.m. my time to start getting ready for the live stream, I'm a happy camper. But I didn't get into the office until like 4 today, and it throws me off. Like it just ruins everything. Even though we're here and I have a list of things to talk about, I'm such a creature of comfort, a creature of habit, that I like everything to be the way it's supposed to be. And I really do look forward to the slowdown as we're coming out of the summer. I know we still got, here in Southern California, we still got another month of 90 plus degree weather, and then a couple, like half a month of 80 plus degree weather, and then we'll hit our winter for about 4 weeks, which we'll get to in the 60s, and then we have to put on our beanies. Hey, shameful plug, hvacrvideos.com, you can get a beanie. We put on our beanies and our Ugg boots and everything because we don't know what cold is here in Southern California. We lose our minds when it gets to the 60s. So anyways, now that I'm done rambling, I hope you guys are doing well. I am healthy, I am safe, my family is safe, and that is all that I can ask for. I've been so thankful. I have to say this last year and a half has made me reflect on how thankful I should be, and I am. I'm very thankful for health, happiness, and we've got food on the table. You know, that's more than I can ask for. I'm super thankful for that. So I try to stay humble when it comes to everything. You know, I try to teach that to my kids and make sure that they understand, you know, that it could be a lot worse. It really could. So, you know, it's the little things. I think that we were kind of having a pre-chat in the chat before this thing started. If you guys don't already know, you're watching a live stream on YouTube, right? And there is a actual chat going on. If you're watching on a TV, it's kind of hard to see the chat, but you actually can see it. If you didn't know that, you got to play with the settings. But if you're on your phone, you're on a computer, anything like that, you can definitely do it. Jose Rivera, thank you so very much for that super chat. You are amazing, bud. You guys blow my mind with your guys' support, okay? I've said it a bunch of times. The easiest way to support this channel is simply just watch the videos from start to finish without skipping through anything. That's as simple as it is, okay? YouTube runs ads on the video, you know, all that good stuff, and they pay me for that, okay? There's other ways you guys could support it too if you want. You can go to my website, hvacrvideos.com. Merchandise available on there. There's some other really cool ways to do it too. You can support the channel via Patreon, via YouTube channel memberships. But like I said, the easiest way is just simply watch the videos. But super chats like Jose Rivera just did, that's really awesome. Thank you. Another cool way is TrueTechTools.com. I use them for a lot of my tool purchases. I actually have an offer code set up with them. Big picture, one word. As of today, you'll get an 8% discount on your order if you use that. Anyways, we are past that point. Let's move on with this, okay? I have a list of things I want to talk about as usual. And I want to get to your guys' questions too. So do me a favor, if you guys have questions that you want me to talk about or things you want me to address, put them in caps lock in the chat, okay? That's all capital letters. So that way it gets my attention. If I don't see your question, you can repeat it until myself or one of the moderators tells you to stop. If I miss your question, feel free to send me an email to hvacrvideos@gmail.com. Okay, cool. Let's get on with this. Yeah, do me a favor, smash the like button, guys. It really helps out the stream. Definitely does. Let me see what I'm missing anything in here. Okay, I'm going to look through the chat real quick, see what I'm missing. Yep. All right, cool. Looks like we're good to go in that one. Okay. Brad had sent me an email, or I can't remember if he sent me an email or if it was a comment, whatever. But anyways, Brad works in the trade. Okay, I'm not going to, he said he works for someone specific, for something specific. I'm tripping over my words right now. We're not going to go into that, but Brad was curious if it's possible for him to start his own business and be successful, but while working all by himself. And what he means by that is he doesn't have someone to do all the office work and all the crazy paperwork and all that stuff. And Brad, it is totally possible these days with technology and everything. Now, depending on how crazy you want to get, there's multiple different softwares out there. It's as simple as using something like QuickBooks Online. You can do your invoicing, all that good stuff. You can have, you know, much more advanced software past that point. But again, remember, guys, Brad is saying that he wants to do it by himself and run a smaller operation, and he wants to know how it can work. It is possible. There's so many different ways to do it. Communication programs, you know, Gmail, all that good stuff. Now, I use a software for my business. I run a very small refrigeration and air conditioning company, couple employees. We have been using the same software for many years. It's called Intuit Field Service Management. It's powered by Corrigo, so it's basically the same thing as Corrigo. And we've used that for years, and it does more than we use because we don't do dispatching or anything like that. We field dispatch. Phone call comes into my phone. I call a guy and I say, hey, go take care of this call. We generate a work order. But with the advancement of technology these days, it's so possible for someone to run a business all by themselves. It's very, very streamlined these days, okay? From small businesses to large businesses, it's you know, it can be done. All right, it's not that big of a deal. The real question is, how busy do you want to be? Okay, now I get a lot of questions, not what Brad was asking me, but I get a lot of questions about starting your own business. People email me all the time. Okay, I am not an expert in running a business. I probably do a horrible job at running my business, but it works for us. Okay, we're not trying to reinvent the wheel. We're not trying to grow leaps and bounds or anything like that. We just stay in our lane and do our thing. Okay, that's the way that we run our business. So in no way is it right for me to give advice on how to grow businesses or anything like that, okay? But I will say, I will give a little bit of advice. I get emailed from people in trade school all the time, and I cannot preach this enough, okay? Most people, okay, most people are not going to be successful starting a business straight out of trade school. Now, I know that there's some exceptions, okay, but for the most part, you're only going to be hurting yourself and everyone around you by starting a business too soon, okay? Now, of course, I want everybody to be successful and grow leaps and bounds and all that good stuff, okay? But you need to learn the trade. You need to work and you need to be an expert in the trade, in my opinion, before you start jumping into the business side of things, okay? So learn how to be a great technician. Learn how to fix the things that you know how to fix or you want to know how to fix, and then learn the business side and then jump over there, okay? And the best advice I can give anybody that wants to start a business is don't be the cheapest person out there, okay? Just because you're busy as heck does not mean you are running a successful business. If you underprice yourself and you're the cheapest guy out there, you're only hurting yourself and all your competitors because you're taking the business from your competitors and you're underpriced on your side. So you're going to be burning yourself out working so much and you're going to be making pennies. All right. So trust me, you need to learn how to properly price your stuff. There's all kinds of different organizations out there that can teach you how to figure out what your pricing should be and stuff like that. But just, trust me, straight out of trade school, most people are not going to succeed starting a business. And I know there's a lot of people that have done it, okay, and a very small percentage of them have succeeded, but a large majority of them, I would be willing to bet, have failed and failed miserably, okay? Now, again, I am not business advice, but I will give one other little piece of advice. Be very, very cautious about leveraging your life to start a business, okay? What I mean by that is don't go head over heels in debt to try to start a business. Just be careful about that. I know that there's people that have done that and continue to do that successfully, but man, is that a scary thing to think that any given day, if someone came up and tried to collect, you didn't have the money. Yeah, man, that's scary. Okay, so I'm going to stop talking about business stuff because it is not in my lane, and I'm going to stay in my lane and talk about service stuff, okay? So, Robert, and this is a great thing. I got the Coke nose going on right now already, okay? So Robert had asked me a question, or he made a comment, and he was saying something about how he wished I, ran a service school or something like that. That's not really my thing to do, but I do want to comment on that, okay? He also praised me for fixing everything when I go out to a service call. So there's two things I want to comment about. First off, let's talk about fixing everything, okay? I show some videos where I do the whole big picture diagnoses and I go to town fixing stuff, right? And I really get to the root cause of everything. I got to be honest, and I think I portray that in my videos, but I got to be honest. Just because you give a big picture quote doesn't necessarily mean the customer is going to approve a big picture repair, and that is okay, okay? As long as you document everything and the customer chooses the cheaper repair, then so be it, as long as you have it documented that you strongly recommended that he go through and do all this stuff, right? So I don't always get to do the big picture repairs, okay? I give big picture quotes all the time. And there's a lot of times where the customer doesn't want to. They say, hey, you know what? Times are tight. What do we got to do to get it working? And that's all we want to worry about. Okay, cool. Here's what we got to do. Change the compressor. But we don't know why the compressor failed. We need to do further diagnosis, but maybe they don't want that, okay? So I just document everything in my invoicing and make sure that the customer fully understands and know who you're supposed to communicate with too. That's a really important thing. Marine 0311 FUL, thank you so very much for that super sticker. I think that's what that is, or super chat or whatever. Again, appreciated. That's awesome, bud, okay? So the customers don't always approve the giant repairs, and that is okay. So just remember that, all right? Remember that I make 2 videos a week, okay? But of those 2 videos, I'm doing 3 to 4 service calls a day that don't necessarily get videoed, okay? So you're not seeing every single repair. I am not the perfect mechanic, okay? I make mistakes. I don't do the prettiest installs. They're functional, but they don't look the best, right? But that's okay, because sometimes the customer doesn't want perfection. They just want, consistency, and they want it to work properly, Okay. Now, of course, I wish that I could be Instagram perfect like some of these people out there. There's some companies that, oh my gosh, their installs are amazing. And I see them on Instagram all the time. But nobody can be Instagram perfect all the time. Okay. So, and just understand that. And I try to be as honest and upfront with everybody as possible. I can hack it up with the best of them. Okay. I really can. Sometimes you got to do what you got to do. All right. And you got to get the equipment operational. Chase, thank you so very much for that super chat, man. Yeah, nose looks a little itchy for sure. Definitely gets there. Okay. The mustache definitely kills me sometimes with the Coke nose for sure. Let's see what I'm missing in the chat right now. Have I used the KE2 KE2 Therm low temp plus defrost? If so, what do I think of it? Jason Johnson, no. I have thought about using it a few times, but I have not used the KE2 Therm low temp plus defrost controller. If you guys don't know what that is, KE2 Therm Products makes temperature controllers, energy monitoring equipment, communication equipment for refrigeration and air conditioning equipment, okay? Mostly for refrigeration, but I believe their first product that came out was the KE2 Therm. It's KE2 and then Therm Evap efficiency controller. That's a big giant controller. Some of the OEMs use it. Frank, thank you very much for that super chat, man. It is amazing. Your guys' support is awesome. Thank you. Thank you. Dan Young, thank you, bud, for the Coke nose for sure, man. All right. So no, I have not used the low temp plus defrost controller. It is something that I'm interested in using, but I am going to tell you that I'm not the biggest fan of smart controllers. Okay, I have been using the KE2 Therm temp plus defrost controller occasionally, and I will use it, but there is times where I actually just took one out of a walk-in box that I didn't install on, I don't know, a year and a half, 2 years ago, because we kept having icing up issues. And this is one of the downsides to using a smart temperature controller, okay? Because on the electronic temperature controllers that have built-in defrost, Penn Johnson has one. I think it's like an A419 something or other, blah, blah, blah. Scott, thank you so very much for that super chat. That's Rookie Refrigeration. I'm sorry, HVAC Rookie, not Rookie Refrigeration. That's Ruben. HVAC, there's too many rookies, okay? But thank you, Scott. That is awesome, but I really, really appreciate it. With the KE2 Therm stuff, the downside to some of that is because the defrost strategy is built into the controller, you have no way of knowing if it actually defrosted. Now, when you get to the smart evaporator efficiency controllers, you can actually look at it through the computer, but that's a whole nother thing. But when it comes to the evaporator or the temp plus defrost controllers, I use them, I do, and I stock them on my truck. But there's times that I yank them out and go with just a standard electronic temperature controller. My go-to electronic temperature controller, if it's not going to be the KE2 Therm Evap efficiency controller, is the Ronco ETC 141000. So 141000. That is a NEMA 4X temperature controller. I really like those controls. I've used them for years. I really like that one because the mounting tabs on the outside, you can just mount it to the wall, similar to the KE2 Therm Evap efficiency controller one too. Okay, now something to think about with the KE2 Therm Evap efficiency, with the temp plus defrost controller from KE2 Therm is it takes a little while to get used to it. But let's just say you set the KE2 temp plus defrost controller for a 37 degree temperature set point with a 3 degree differential. Okay. So what it's going to do is it's going to come down to, oh wait, you know what? I'm already confused on that one. Let me think here. I just had a brain fart on what I was trying to explain. So we're going to go ahead and change the subject because I think I might mix that one up and screw it all up. But just keep in mind that there's a time and place for those smart temperature controllers, and there's a time and place for a standard defrost clock too. If you have consistent icing up issues, a standard defrost clock like a Graslin does really well in refrigeration because let's just say I have a walk-in cooler where the customer is in and out of it all day long. If I use a smart temperature controller that has built-in defrost, you tell it, hey, I want 6 defrosts a day for 20 minutes. Well, every defrost is going to be 20 minutes. And as far as I know, you can't make another defrost 30 or 40 minutes and then have other 20-minute defrosts. That's where a Graslin defrost clock is really beneficial because I could do 15-minute defrost every couple hours during the day. And then in the middle of the night from like 1 to 2 in the morning when nobody's in the building, I could defrost the walk-in for an hour and a half. You know, doors are shut. It'll make sure that there's no ice buildup. So that's something that I really like about using a standalone defrost clock. I get that question all the time from people. Why don't you get rid of those stupid mechanical defrost clocks? Or I get people from other countries. The United States is so behind every other country. We use electronic temperature controllers for everything. We do too. But there's a time and place. When you have a restaurant where they're jamming in and out of that thing and they're icing it up weekly, sometimes you need a long ass defrost in the middle of the night to get that box defrosted. Okay, just my 2 cents. All right, who cares if I use whatever control here or there? It doesn't make me any more of a, I don't know. It's just kind of funny how sometimes people pass judgment. And it's like, man, you don't even know what's going on over here. All right, so whatever. All right, am I allergic to the spit blocker? I don't know what that is, but I saw a bunch of super chats and super stickers. Chase, thank you very much. Caesar, thank you very much. You guys are amazing. You guys are just, thank you. Have I ever come across an R290 air conditioner? No, not Kai. As far as I know, actually, no, some of the window shaker units might be isobutane. But no, I have not worked on any R290 air conditioners, no. It would be a good gas once they do let it, so. All right, let's see what else we got. Yeah, no worries, Jason. But I love the KE2 Therm products, okay? And the smart evaporator efficiency controller is amazing. One thing about the Evap, what do you want to call it? The Temp Plus electric defrost controller, whatever it's called, is you don't have all the great fancy stuff when you connect a computer to it that you would with the Evap efficiency controller. With the Evap efficiency controller, you can really launch a space shuttle with that thing. One of these days, I have an Evap efficiency controller on the refrigerator in my garage. I have a video on my channel where I took an R290 refrigerator that the customer wanted me to throw away, and I disproved the myth that you can just drop 134A in it and it would work perfect. I made a video on that, right? I took that refrigerator and it sits in my garage. I put R290 back in it, but I went a little crazy because I had an Evap efficiency controller, which is a giant temperature controller for a walk-in cooler. I put it on that thing. It has a pressure transducer. It does not have an EEV, but maybe one day I'll put an EEV on it. But anyways, it has a regular standard TXV. I put R290 back in it. I have that Evap efficiency controller, and I can actually pull it up because I have it connected to my wireless network in my house. So like I could pull it up and look at it on my computer, and we could see like the defrost trends, and that is really cool being able to pull it up on a computer. So one of these days, maybe I'll set that up to where I can show it on a live stream or something. But anyways, all right. Ralph, thanks for coming in, bud. I really appreciate you. Have I got a favorite piece of equipment or tool? Mark, I was thinking about this the other day. For those of you guys that do refrigeration, answer me in the chat. I'm really curious. What is probably one of your most common tools that you use out of your van when you do refrigeration, especially like the restaurant refrigeration guys? Lately, I've been thinking about this, and I feel like my water hoses are one of my most commonly used tools out of my van. It feels like I'm defrosting evaporator coils at least 3 to 4 times a week. All right. I was just doing one on Saturday. I had an emergency walk-in freezer call, iced up evaporator. So, you know, getting out the hoses, defrosting it, hot water, all that good stuff. I feel like my hoses are one of my #1 tools. But I really do like, as far as other tools that I really like, I have the Vito rolling backpack. That has been a great tool. I am going to do some more tool review videos on the HVACR Tools YouTube channel that I have created. I just haven't had time to really spend posting videos on that. But I've been using that Vito rolling backpack, and there's a lot of good things, but there's a few bad things that I don't like about it too. So I will be posting a review video, but that is a favorite tool of mine, is that rolling backpack. It's really nice. But like I said, there's some downsides to it too. Yeah, I love my tool bag. My Field Piece SC480 meter is one of my favorites, but I have to say the water hoses, and then I use a spray wand when I'm defrosting evaporators. It's from Lowe's. It's made by Orbit, and it has like adjustable settings on it. That comes in really handy when you're defrosting evaporators, because sometimes you flip it on the mist setting and you can get in places where normally water would splash everywhere, and you can effectively defrost stuff with just the misting setting. It's actually a really neat feature on it. I've shown it a million times, but go to any Lowe's or home improvement supply house and look for a wand with an adjustable head on it. And you guys, if you guys doing your refrigeration work, you will really, really appreciate that. All right, I'm going to get to my questions that I want to talk about. Let's see. Oh, but Robert had said that he wished I ran a school, and I wanted to comment about that too. And that's very nice of you to say that, Robert. I do have to say something, though, and I'm going to stand on my soapbox right now. Now, there's a lot of bad teachers in trade schools, okay? But there's a lot of good teachers too in trade schools. But one thing I have to say is, for the good teachers, right, is many teachers as I know and I talk to on a regular basis, the one common thread amongst almost all of those teachers that are teaching air conditioning and refrigeration is that teachers are not paid enough when it comes to HVAC trade school. Now, the bad teachers, they could go pound sand. I could care less about them, okay? But the good teachers, the guys that really, really know their stuff and really are passionate about teaching, there's not enough money in those schools to pay them properly. And it's sad to say that most of the kids that they are training will be making more money than those teachers within 6 months to a year of getting out of trade school. And that's a scary thought to think about that. Think about how discouraging that is for the trade schools. I have a little bit of a thing that I want to bring up too, because I was approached at the beginning of COVID about helping out with an HVAC program. And there's a lot of hypocrisy in the schools too. And this was a public school, which I'm always pushing the public schools. There's good private schools too, but I'm always pushing the public schools for a couple reasons. But there was a school that reached out to me at the beginning of the COVID thing because they were having to do this online stuff and they just wanted to know if I could help. And I was like, yeah, we could totally work this out where we can do some stuff with like a live stream or something like that. And I could just assist. I wasn't going to be a teacher. I was just going to help. They couldn't hire me because I don't have an associate's degree. Okay. Or I don't have a bachelor's degree or something. And I was like, wait a minute. So I'm not the greatest technician in the world, but you seriously can't hire me because I don't have a degree, an associate's degree that focuses on math and science and all that crap that you don't need for air conditioning and refrigeration, as long as you have, I mean, you need some math skills and stuff, but I mean, just the hypocrisy of it all. You know, they can't hire a teacher, but they can hire a teacher that has no experience, that has a degree, that can just teach out of a book all day long. Okay. So some of these trade schools, man, they have it ass backwards and it's kind of silly. They need to reform this crap. And as a student going to trade school, you should not be making more money than the teacher within 6 months to a year. That's kind of baloney. Now, okay, I'm going to step off the soapbox now and get back to talking about what I'm supposed to be talking about. Okay. I'm going to cover these or mark these questions off on my list that I already covered. Jeremy asked a really good question. He sent me an email and he sent me a picture of an air handler, and he was really kind of curious because he's been working in the commercial side and he has to work on boxcar units, big giant units. And he was just kind of curious what my thoughts were when he has to climb into a giant package unit to clean the evaporator. Now, we're not talking a 15-ton package unit. We're talking hundreds of tons, big giant boxcar package units. They're as big as a diesel truck trailer. Okay, they're huge. They sit on top of the roof. Some people may call them penthouses. Well, penthouse is technically a rack room, but you guys get what I'm saying. Okay, so he was kind of curious what were my thoughts of him having to climb into a package unit to clean the evaporator coils and stuff like that. So my first thought is, as a business owner, sometimes you got to do what you got to do, because I have climbed into so many different package units, smaller ones, to clean them, you know, laying in air handlers and different things like that. Sometimes it's easier. I'll climb into an ice machine bin when there's no ice in it to lift up the ice machine, do different stuff like that, right? But then I have to step back and remember, I have to see the other side as a business owner. And then I start thinking about the liability, confined space requirements, and different things like that. So as a technician, you guys have to know your limits, okay? You have to know what's safe, and you have to know when to raise your hand and say, hey, boss, this doesn't seem quite right. I don't feel comfortable doing this. You have to know your limits, and you have to know when to raise your hand and say, hey, we need to figure something else out here because I don't feel safe in this matter. Now, I'm not necessarily saying that, Jeremy, in your situation, that's a dangerous thing, but that is something you need to consider, okay? Is that a confined space? If you go into that unit and the door slams shut, is there any way that the door can be locked from the outside to where you couldn't get out? Those are things you have to think about, okay? In my younger days, and even sometimes still nowadays, I can be accused of doing some silly things to get the job done. But in the end, The most important thing is not about getting the equipment fixed. The most important thing is not about making the customer happy. The most important thing is not about making your boss happy. The most important thing about your day is going home at the end of the day to your family, being alive, being safe. Okay? This is not worth it for a paycheck, right? So whatever you got to do to feel comfortable about your job, whatever you got to do to protect yourself, that needs to be your number one priority. Now, also, on the flip side, I'm a business owner over here, okay? I want to protect my guys. In fact, we were just having a conversation today about lifting an exhaust fan on the roof, and I didn't quite feel comfortable pulling it up the side of the building because someone would have had to stand on the side. I was like, I'd rather you guys use a lift. But then one of my technicians said, I have a better way of doing it. We don't have to use the lift. We can do this, this, and this. And it worked, okay? We had a discussion about it. It's important. Sometimes as a business owner too, I can get caught up in the craziness of things and just assume that it's no big deal. You can take care of it, right? Yeah, I got it. But we have to remember the most important thing about all of us is we need to be able to go home at the end of the day. So keep that in mind, okay? So Jeremy, in your situation, honestly, the picture that you sent me, that didn't look too bad, but I don't know the details about that job. I wouldn't mind climbing into that package unit, Jeremy. But at the same time, are you comfortable doing it? Okay, you need to raise your hand and say, hey, no, I'm not. Talk to your boss about it. Maybe he can talk you into it. Okay, this is safe. This is no big deal. The unit's turned off and locked out. Who knows? Okay, always want to be safe. You never want to climb into an air handler next to a moving belt or something like that. But I mean, you know, sometimes you got to do what you got to do. Okay, but just remember that your safety is the number one priority as technicians for real. Okay, guys, let's see what else we got. Let me see what I'm missing in the chat. What do we have here? Do we know how to change the condenser fan motor rotation if it's a 3-wire motor? Savon, if it's a 3-wire motor, depending on whether or not it's 3-phase, okay, it may not be interchangeable unless it's a universal motor that has wires that can be changed. Now, if it's a 3-phase motor, you can interchange any two leads, assuming that, again, when I answer questions, I'm assuming that you understand basic electrical knowledge. If it's a 3-phase ECM motor or something like that, or VFD or something like that, you got to be careful, okay? Be cautious. Use common proper practices, okay? But if it's a standard 3-phase motor, yes, you can interchange any two leads, okay? If it's a single-phase motor, there should be some motor taps that you can reverse on it, something like that, okay? So keep that in mind. Let me see what else we got going on in the chat. The day your obituary is posted, the company has been looking for your replacement already, and that is a great point, Albert, okay? And as a business owner, that is a great point too, because my business needs to succeed past the point of my employees, right? So God forbid something horrible happens, I still have to feed my family and I have to keep on trucking. Now, of course, I would mourn the loss of an employee. That would be a horrible thing. But I'm just saying the business has to keep going. So he has a great point. The day your obituary is posted, we're already looking for a replacement, okay? And it's not that you weren't worth it to us, but it's just that the point we're trying to make is protect yourself. Look out for yourself, okay? Remember, of course, as a business owner, I'm trying to look out for my guys as much as possible, but I'm not the one out in the field with them at every single moment. I'm doing my own thing out in the field. So I have to rely on them being honest and open and telling me, hey, I don't feel comfortable doing this. Sometimes I don't know the things they're walking up on, and they have to vocalize that to me, okay? So I don't know what's going on as a business owner unless my guys tell me, hey, this is dangerous. I don't feel comfortable doing it. And then we'll have a conversation and we'll figure out why, what's going on. Send me pictures. Oh, wow. Yeah, that is dangerous. Good call, okay? So remember, protect yourself for sure. Jason, you have RTUs with 3-phase condenser fan motors. Yeah, there you go. If you have 3-phase condenser fan motors, sure. You can probably reverse the rotation on those, but be careful if they have VFDs. There's some special ways you need to do it for sure. Okay. Let me see what else we got going on in the chat. All right, I'm going to go ahead and get to my list of things to talk about. So I covered that one. All right. Something that I mix up all the time. I get enough comments about it that every once in a while I have to address it. And for those of you other technicians, you guys already know what I mean. But for those of you that aren't technicians, I realize, okay, and it's okay. I have a lot of people that are not service technicians that watch these videos, and it's good, okay? That's a good thing. But brazing, soldering, and welding. Guys, those are common phrases that we as technicians always mix up. I can't tell you how many times I go out and say, hey, go weld in that compressor. It's very rare that you're actually welding in a compressor. You're technically brazing in a compressor, okay? Hey, go weld that drain line together. Majority of the time, if you're working on a drain line, you're soldering the drain line together, okay? There's differences in the way that you're bonding the metals together. Are you using a filler metal? Are you actually melting the metal? Are you using solders that's bonding one to the other? Okay? But realize, I trip over my words all the time. I'm not perfect. I'm going to screw things up. I'm not going to lie to you and say I'm not going to call it welding anymore, okay? Because I call it welding all the time. It is what it is. Sorry. All right? All right, let's get on to this. Covered that one. When I'm talking to these restaurants, recently I released a video this last week about a walk-in freezer. First off, some of you guys need to pay attention to the video before you comment. I can't tell you how many comments I got on that video recently that I just released yesterday saying, oh my gosh, is California locked down again? I'm just like, did you not watch the video? Like, I did a teaser clip and then I did an explanation because I knew I was going to get a crap ton of comments. And in the explanation, I said, this video was shot a year ago. It was archived footage. Come on, guys. Pay attention to the video, all right? I'm talking to you. It made me laugh. I was like, seriously? I can't tell you how many comments I got. Oh my gosh, is California locked down again? Good gosh, guys. Anyways, all right. When it comes to these restaurants, okay, and I'm coaching the restaurants and I'm trying to teach them about better habits, okay, does it get frustrating? Someone asked me that. Yes, it does get frustrating because over and over and over again, I'm coaching the restaurants on the same things. You cannot push a giant cart full of really hot food that you just got done cooking into your walk-in cooler. Your walk-in cooler was not designed for that. Okay, there is walk-in coolers that are designed for that, but yours is not. So do not push a giant cart full of red hot food that you just pulled out of the fryer and the grill because you want to cool it or whatever. Do not push that into the walk-in cooler because it's just going to cause problems. Now, if your equipment's sized for that, if you have a blast chiller, sure, that's what it's for, okay? But coaching these customers, do I get sick of it? Yes, I do get sick of it, but I don't tell the customers that, okay? Because guess what? If I piss off the customers and start yelling at them because they're not listening to me when I say to shut the door, really quickly, I'm going to run out of customers. Okay. There's something about restaurants. When you deal with restaurants like I do, you're going to learn that you're going to be telling them the same thing over and over again. Like, hey, when you get your delivery Friday and Monday, you can't leave the walk-in freezer door open for 4 hours while you're counting all your food and loading it into the walk-in. You have to turn the equipment off. I have to tell restaurants that all the time. And I used to get frustrated, but I got over it because guess what? It just keeps happening over and over and over and over again. And it's just part of the game. Okay. If you're playing the game and you're working in restaurants, that's something you need to get used to. They're never going to stop leaving doors open. They're never going to stop overloading boxes. It's just not going to happen. Of course, I still coach them on it and I let them know, hey, the reason why this happened is because you guys overloaded this box. But then I usually say, but I realize your walk-in cooler is too small and you really don't have much of a choice. But just so that you know, I can't come back and do this again for free next week because if you continue to overload the box, I'm going to keep charging you. And it's a polite way of covering my ass kind of a thing, okay? So, of course, I continue to coach these customers. But if you're working in restaurants, there's something you have to realize. You're not going to change their habits, okay? They're hiring minimum wage cooks to do the job. There's 1 to 2 managers. They can't be watching the cooks 24/7. The cooks are bored. They don't want to be there. They're beating the crap out of the equipment. So to get frustrated because you constantly have to keep doing something over and over and over again, you either need to change your job or you need to go see a therapist like I did and learn how to just let it go, okay? It is what it is. It's part of the game. Right? So I coach the restaurants. Yes, I teach them. Hey, heck, I had a question too. Someone said, hey, why the heck? Because I mentioned in a video that I cleaned out a reach-in cooler with a water hose because I was de-icing and it was really nasty in there. Why would you clean that? I would have made the cooks do it. Okay, because I was there. And I would have had to have come back. They weren't going to clean it for me right then and there. And if they were going to clean it, they weren't going to do it the way that I wanted to do it. So I'm there. I'm getting paid. I need to finish my job. And in order to finish my job, I'm going to clean out the box. So I can either wait for them to do it and them not do it right, or I can just do it myself. So I just politely go tell the manager, hey, if you don't mind, I'm going to go ahead and take all the food out of this. I'd suggest you put it in the walk-in cooler, and I'm going to go ahead and clean this box out for you because I need it clean so I can work on it. Okay? Then I'll get my water hose and I make a big-ass mess in the kitchen, squeegee it all up so I can lay on the floor, get in there, and now I have a clean box, a clean floor, and I can get in and do my thing. Okay? So it's another one of those things. When I'm working in restaurants, I just learned to deal with the craziness, and it is what it is. I don't mind it, and I've come to terms with it because if they don't call me, they're going to call someone else. And do you realize what that means? If they don't call me, then I'm no longer invoicing them for that. My business no longer stays afloat. Okay? So if I hate it that much, then it's time to change industries. But I don't. It is what it is. I've grown up doing this, and here it is. You know, I'm just going to do my best and treat the customer like their family. All right? Let me see what else we got going on in here. Okay? I'm going to get to the chat and see if I missed anything. Yeah, the Coke nose is on point right now for sure. Okay. Let me see what else we got. Water between, I don't know what that is. Have I ever had to call in the public health authorities because food preparation has been unsafe? Graham, no, that is not my place to call in the health department. If I ever came into a situation where it was that dire, then I would bring it up to the corporate office because I work for giant corporate chains typically. And I would tell them, hey, there's some seriously unsanitary situation going on here. They need to get it fixed. I don't feel comfortable working on this equipment. But never would I call the health department. No, that's not my place. And the moment that I start calling the health department, if the customer found out, I would never, ever work for that customer again, and probably never, ever work for any of their friends or any restaurants in that area. Okay. So I stay in my lane. I'm there to fix equipment. I am not a health inspector. If I see something that I don't like, today I was working on a reach-in cooler and it had a bunch of dead food and nastiness growing and fuzzy stuff in there. And I just politely went and grabbed the manager and I said, hey, just want you to see this. This is really gross. I know you guys are busy. Just take a picture of it. And he goes, yeah, we're going to work on it, man. And I said, if you don't mind, I'm going to go ahead and clean this because I need it clean so I can work on it. He said, all right, cool. Appreciate it. I made a big ass mess in the kitchen, but it was clean. I had to lay in the box, change a temperature controller, and call it a day. Okay. So no, I stay in my lane. I do not call the health department. That is not my position. And I'm just there to fix equipment and report to the on-site management what I find. Let's see what else we got here. What can I do about aluminum to copper connection that is leaking? Heavy metal guitarist. Well, here's my thought, and I'm sure maybe someone can be corrected. I'm not an expert on connecting aluminum to copper. I do know that there's a company out there called Solder Weld. I have some aluminum to copper brazing rods. I believe they call it Alcop. They're Alcop brazing rods. You can use it, but the question is, does Solder Weld's Alcop bond with whatever the previous company used to bond the aluminum to copper connections? Okay, I would probably try to stay with the exact same type of solder because sometimes mixing solders can be kind of problematic. It is possible to repair something like that if you know what kind of solder they used previously. If you don't, your best bet would be to eliminate that connection and do a new connection point. Use that Alcop rod or whatever you're going to use to properly connect the 2 points. In my situation, I've worked on some like glass tinder refrigerators and other brand refrigerators that had like aluminum evaporators that were leaking, and I just ordered a new evaporator. Just give me a new evaporator, a new TXV. We'll put them back together. And I said, next time, can you send a copper evaporator? And they said, yep, we got rid of the aluminum ones. We'll send you a copper one. Boom, done. No more problems with that. Okay. So there is stuff out there. Look up the company called Solder Weld. I believe they're distributed by Supco, and they have a couple other supply houses that sell their products. I believe they're in some of the Johnstone supplies too. So check them out. They do have some products, and I know that Alcop stuff. I've never used it, but I've heard that it bonds the aluminum and copper for sure. So thank you for all the support, guys. If you haven't already, please smash the thumbs up or the like button. It looks like we have 336 people watching right now and 174 likes. I'd really appreciate it if you get that like count up. It really does help out the channel to grow and the stream to grow. Okay. How can I differentiate between a muffler filter or a strainer? Well, a muffler will typically be on the discharge line. If you have a filter dryer on the discharge line, someone screwed up, okay? So mufflers are typically bigger in size, especially on the old semi-hermetic systems. They had big ass mufflers on there. As far as a filter or a strainer or filter dryer or just a suction line filter, those will typically be on the suction line side, and they'll be labeled as far as the nomenclature on it, okay? So Sporlan does make a suction line filter, and they do make a suction line filter dryer. I will say that majority of the time, you can't go buy the suction line filter at your normal supply houses. Those are typically supplied with OEM equipment. Manitowoc uses suction line filters on the roof to protect the compressor on some of their ice machines. Majority of the people are probably going to cut out the suction line filter and put in a suction line filter dryer if need be. But it's really just about understanding where it is in the system and what it's doing, calling the manufacturer and asking them. A lot of times there's labeling on the equipment, that kind of stuff, okay? If I didn't answer your question, feel free to send me some pictures if you're curious about what something is to hvacrvideos@gmail.com, and maybe we can communicate some more and I can identify via pictures through email, okay? Logan, thank you so very much for that super chat, man. That is amazing. So you need a rookie electrical engineer on the team. You're on the market. Oh yeah, no, I'm not looking for an electrician right now. But Storm, wow, Ethan, you guys, holy moly, Storm, that is an amazing super chat. That is awesome. Thank you so very much. What's the most remote I've ever worked? You just got back from Shamia Island. Please Google it. It was ridiculous. The most remote I've ever worked. I've never really gone too far, actually. I'm trying to think here right now. No, I'd say no more than 100, 200 miles from my location is the most remote I've ever worked. I've never done, I know friends and acquaintances that have, you know, traveled to Hawaii and different things like that to Supergiant. I had my uncle used to own a refrigeration and air conditioning company, and he got this really sweet gig where he used to work for this big giant restaurant chain, and they had to have a bunch of construction done at one of their restaurants on one of the main islands in Hawaii, I think the Big Island. And they just wanted him to go out and supervise the job and hire the contractors. And so he literally had to fly out to Hawaii to spend a week there just to supervise. And he didn't even do anything. He said, he didn't even have work clothes, didn't even take tools with him. He just flew out there, met the contractors, told them what he wanted done, just watched them, make sure they did their job. He said they did a great job. And he had a week paid vacation in Hawaii just to go supervise a job. That sounds kind of fun. I also envy some of the guys that get to work on some of these fancy high-end yachts. They may not envy it because I'm sure it can be a pain in the butt too. But apparently they have to fly to some crazy places to work on some of these chillers and stuff in the yachts, these fancy things. So that's kind of interesting too. But no, I've never gone anywhere. Storm, I will definitely look that up. I'm going to write that down right now. So SHEMYA Island. That's really interesting, bud. I'm intrigued. Ethan Arbuckle, thank you so very much for that super chat, bud. That is amazing. Has a manager ever asked me to stop recording? No, Ethan, okay? So let me explain this. I get this question all the time. Do my restaurants know that I am recording? Yes and no, okay? First and foremost, I'm going to tell you that there's not a national chain out there that will ever give you full corporate approval to film on their locations, okay? I work very hard to not disclose the locations that I'm working in. In fact, I've said it a million times that those are one of the only comments I delete from my channels when people try to guess restaurant names right or wrong, is I immediately delete them, okay? So on the flip side, I do have corporate approval from quite a few of my restaurants, but not full corporate approval, okay? They appreciate what I'm doing. They appreciate the videos. And a lot of my restaurants have been getting feedback. They're like, hey, someone's working in one of your restaurants and they're training technicians and they're doing a great job, that kind of stuff. And the restaurants, really, the big giant corporate offices, they appreciate it. But on the same side, they can't give you full corporate approval because there's too much liability involved. I have to work my butt off to make sure that I don't disclose restaurant names, locations. Guys, I have people all the time that will guess a restaurant location correctly and send me an email just from seeing landmarks in the area. They're like, just because you're in these two places, I know exactly what restaurant you're on. It's this one. And it's like, oh, yeah. So please leave that out of the comments and stuff like that, guys. Okay. If you want to send me an email, sure, send me an email. But so yes and no. The restaurants do approve of me filming. Have I ever had a manager tell me to stop filming? No, because I'm very discreet about what I do. Okay. Let me see what else we got in here. What am I missing? With VFDs, do you shut them off before turning off the disconnect for maintenance? Kevin Corona. Okay, that is a great question. So when you are working on a VFD, let's preface this. Okay, you have a typical VFD is a variable frequency drive. It's there to modulate the frequency, okay, or the hertz delivered at which the electricity is delivered. Okay, they can slow down and speed up three-phase equipment or even non-three-phase, well, yeah, three-phase equipment by slowing down and adjusting the frequency, okay, or speeding it up. Now, with that being said, do I turn off the VFD before I turn off the equipment? It depends on the way that it's installed, okay? So I have several exhaust fans out there that have a breaker panel that runs three-phase power to a VFD. Then it goes from the VFD up to the motor up on the roof for the exhaust fan, and then there's a three-phase switch at the exhaust fan. If you do things correctly, you are not supposed to turn that three-phase switch off, okay? You're supposed to go down and terminate the power to the VFD before you work on the equipment. There can be some issues with that, okay? Now, a lot of the manufacturers of the equipment have installed safeties that prevent that from being an issue. If you read the installation instructions, they typically tell you to not put a field disconnect switch in between the VFD and the end-of-use motor or whatever it may be, because there can be repercussions of that. But if you install it correctly, I've done some exhaust fans where I will have an interlock switch at the disconnect up on the roof, and if you shut off the disconnect switch, it immediately sends a stop signal to the VFD, so that way the VFD powers back up when you turn it back on. That is the right way to do it. So I try to do it that way when possible. I have not always done it that way throughout my career because I was ill-informed for the longest time because I did not research and figure out why this can happen. It can cause catastrophic failures within the VFDs if you're not careful about that, okay? Let's see. Late night HVAC. I really appreciate that super chat, man. And that's awesome, man. Okay, do I still study systems, and how do I study them? Free Funky, Google research, man. If I'm really curious about how something's going to work, I'll start Googling it. And I do multiple points of research. I find the manufacturer's installation information. I'll go to message boards, ask friends, and get as much information as I can. Then I'll kind of consolidate that, read through it, and then decide, hey, this is how this is supposed to work, or it's supposed to work this way, but a lot of people have issues with this or that or whatever. So it's really about reaching out to my peers, getting into different HVAC groups, talking to people. And so, yes, I still do research. I love doing research. In fact, that's probably one of the biggest complaints from my wife is that I'm constantly reading stuff. And it's, of course, I'm looking at my phone, so that just makes it an even bigger problem. But I'm looking at my phone and I'm reading tech installation documents and whatever. I just got of all things, guys, I went to the dark side, okay? I finally did it. After countless emails and comments, I finally went out and bought an insulation tester. Okay, I bought a Fluke 1587, so no, I didn't spare very many expenses on that one. And I spent a crap ton of money, and I bought an insulation tester. So I've been reading the manuals on, okay, this is what you're supposed to do. I've used insulation testers before, but I'm not super fluent in them. So I've been reading and reading and reading. But I love doing that. I go down the rabbit hole of reading all kinds of things, okay? So stay tuned. Maybe I'll have some videos using the mega ohm meter or the insulation tester soon, okay? What do I think about the blueone app? Danny, I downloaded the blueone app, I'd say a year or two ago, whenever it first came out. I looked at it a few times. It's really cool because it consolidates a lot of manuals that we didn't know were easy to get, okay? I have never used blueone before, but their app is really cool because it does consolidate a lot of manuals. On the flip side, I really don't have a hard time finding those manuals because majority of them, you can just do some research and be like, oh yeah, here's the manual for this. Learning how to ask the Google for things, it's pretty easy once you start figuring out how to do search terms and stuff, and you can really find a lot of information. But the blueone app is a convenient thing, just like PartsTown. PartsTown is a refrigeration parts distributor, and they have a great app too because they've consolidated manuals of tons of equipment. But even still, I find myself not using the PartsTown app and going directly to the manufacturer's website to download their tech documents because, hey, maybe they didn't update the PartsTown app or something like that, okay? So something to think about. But the blueone app is pretty neat, okay? I have nothing bad to say about the app itself. In the past, I've had some issues with blueone's marketing, but that's a whole nother topic. Samurai, thank you very much for that super chat, man. Good luck on your call, okay, bud? Logan, thank you very much for that super chat. Do I have any history with unions? You're an IBEW member, but not sure you're seeing any active benefits. Logan, my grandfather was actually the union president of the local IBEW here in Southern California for the obviously for the electrical. He was president for a brief period of time. But anyways, union or non-union, Logan, it's all about what's best for you and your family. I have no good things. I have no opinions, good or bad, to say against joining a union. Okay. I shouldn't say that. That's not the right way of saying that. It's all about what's best for you and your family. Okay. Does the union provide you good pay? Does the union give you better benefits? Does it give you consistent, steady work? Do you feel like you're being educated properly? As opposed to working for a non-union company, are you going to get that stuff with a non-union company? I don't know, okay? The union is not super strong here in Southern California, okay, when it comes to HVAC and air conditioning work. So I have a buddy that works for the union and he loves it, but you're never going to work in restaurants, do that kind of stuff because they can't afford union rates, okay? So it really depends on the area and the type of work that you're doing. And it really depends on what's best for you and your family. So if the union has better benefits and you feel more comfortable, then so be it, man. Do what's best for you and your own, okay? So I'm not going to say anything bad about the union because I really don't have any experience with it, okay? Now, of course, you hear the comments that union workers are lazy, but guess what? Non-union workers are lazy too, okay? Come on. There's lazy people everywhere. So to use that as a argument for union or non-union is kind of a BS argument, okay? It's really about what's best for you. That's the best way to think about it. So if you don't see the benefit in it, then maybe you need to start doing research. But trust me, don't jump ship until you've done a lot of research, okay? Because the grass is not always greener on the other side, for real, okay? So make sure you dig hard into that one. And remember, benefits are not just an hourly pay, and I'm sure you know this, but I'm going to say it, okay? Hourly pay is not the only thing you need to be concerned about, okay? Because you have total benefit costs, right? Or you know, total benefit package, retirement, healthcare. Healthcare is a big one, man. Is healthcare taken care of for your entire family? Because that's not I mean, I will say for a lot of union companies that can be a perk if they have entire family healthcare. That's a huge perk, to be honest with you, okay? Even I don't offer healthcare for the entire family for my employees because I just can't afford it. Okay, so it really depends on what's best for you and your family. Look at the entire package and kind of evaluate it from there. Hopefully that answers your question for you, bud, okay? If I don't answer any of your questions fully enough or you want to talk more about it, feel free to send me an email. This goes to everybody, hvacrvideos@gmail.com, okay? Why is it that I don't refurbish motors? I must answer this question every couple months, okay? I have a business and I have employees. Asking employees to refurbish motors can be kind of tricky, okay? Did they get the right bearings? Are the bearings going to fit in there? Is the housing on the bearing too big? Is there other problems within the motor? Majority of the time, the equipment that I'm working on, it's not cost effective to change bearings in a motor. It's probably going to be cheaper just to chuck the motor and put a new motor in, okay? So no, I do not reuse motors. I do not replace bearings in motors or anything like that. In the equipment that I work on, it's cheaper just to replace the whole motor and call it a day, okay? Liability, warranty, all that stuff, it's not worth it to me, okay? So why would I clean? I already answered that question for sure. Cool. I already answered that one. In my walk-in freezers, you know, when I'm working on these walk-in freezers where they're installing or where they're leaving doors open constantly, why don't I install like door alarms? I've done that in the past. And to be honest with you, it's kind of funny. You come back and you install a door alarm that'll go off. And then like a month later, you come back out to work on something and there's a big ass piece of duct tape over that door alarm. Alarms aren't going to do anything. Okay. If they have bad habits, they're going to continue to use those bad habits and they're going to find ways to bypass alarms and different things like that. So it's all about coaching and asking the manager what they want. I don't see the cost. I mean, yeah, of course I could sell door alarms all day long, but I'm going to end up getting stupid nuisance calls where I need you out here on a Saturday night because this alarm's going off. My walk-in's at temperature, but it's annoying the heck out of me. And I need you to come here and turn it off. Stop what you're doing. Stop eating your dinner and come out and turn off an alarm. That's how I predict a service call for door alarms. So nah, unless the customer asks for it, I'm not installing door alarms. Let's see. I just saw Dave. Thank you very much for that super chat, man. How do I balance the customer wanting patchwork fix versus what I think would be the proper fix? That's a great question, Dave. And that kind of goes along with what I mentioned earlier, and I'll talk about it again. Just because I give the customer a big picture quote does not mean they're going to approve the big picture quote. And that's okay. Okay. So when I come out here and I give them a quote and I say, look, this compressor is bad, but we need to find out why it failed. So I'm going to quote for 8 hours to change the compressor, and maybe for 2 guys or something. And then I'm going to quote another 6 hours or 4 hours after that to troubleshoot after we change the compressor to try to figure out why the compressor failed. And then from that point forward, we might have to submit another quote to go ahead and repair whatever caused the compressor to fail. Now, by that point in time, if they're getting competitive quotes, I can guarantee you nobody else is going to quote that other stuff. They're just going to say it's going to take 2 guys 8 hours or whatever it is to change the compressor. So therefore my quote is going to be astronomically higher than everybody else's. And if it's a new customer or something like that, they're not going to see that. So what I'm going to do, is just document everything. And I'm going to say, hey, I strongly suggest you call me back out, or you let me come out the next day or a week later to come check on the system, check the pressure drop across the dryers, and let's go through this and try to figure out why this compressor failed and eliminate this problem. But most of the time they're not going to do that. Okay, so you just have to take a deep breath and document everything. That's how I do it. Okay, and in my situation, I work with some corporate places, right? So I know multiple people above the guy that I'm talking to. Okay, so I will typically go, hey, this is what's going on. I'd strongly suggest you guys do this. Or even better, when I send them the quote, I'll CC a few different people and say, hey, I strongly suggest you guys let me spend some time. This is a problematic system. We've changed this compressor 3 times in the last 5 years. This is unacceptable. Let's get to the bottom of this. We need extra time in this quote. Here's why I'm quoting, because we need to figure out why this thing failed. And if they deny it, that's fine, because I have it documented with multiple people in that email. I've got everything written down. So I always try to give big picture quotes, but it's really just a matter of what they approve. And if they don't approve, that's fine, but just document everything to the point that, they're like, oh my gosh, okay, we should have listened to that guy. Okay. And then, if it's a customer that's constantly berating you with stupid service calls and all that stuff, you may need to consider a new customer. Sometimes, I've only had to fire a few customers in my career, but there's times, when it's just like, this just isn't worth it anymore. You guys are just too much of a pain in the butt. You should probably call someone else, I don't know if that answered your question right or not, David. Feel free to send me an email. We can talk a little bit more about it. Okay. All right. Let's see what else we got in here. What was the most embarrassing moment in my career outside the hospital moment? The hospital moment was pretty funny. I'm curious, John Deere fan, which hospital moment are you talking about? Because I can think of 2 hospital moments. Mike Wings, thank you so much for that super chat, man. I really, really appreciate that. So, John Deere fan, I have 2 hospital moments that I can think of. I can think of the hospital moment where we put 5 bad evaporator or 515 volt evaporator fan motors in a 230 volt evaporator. And they called me back like 3 hours later because the morgue smelt like it was on fire and all the bodies smelt like they were burnt. And that particular morgue, 4-passenger morgue cooler smelt burnt for like the next, I'm not kidding with you, year. It still had a burning smell inside of it. That was a funny one. And then there was also the hospital moment where I was, politely knocking on the lactation clinic door because there's a room where they'd send the nursing moms to lactate and do, the breastfeeding stuff. And some lady answers the door and tells me to come on in. And I was like, oh no, ma'am, you're in there. I'll let you finish. And she goes, honey, if you haven't seen a boobie in your life by this point, there's something wrong with you. And I was like, ma'am, I'm just going to stand outside this door until you're done. I know better than that one. So that was an awkward, funny moment too. As far as any other funny moments, I don't know if I can think of. There's one, actually. I was just telling one of my, I think I haven't made a video on this yet, but I just worked on a walk-in cooler, and it's funny because I walked in And we used to have this problematic manager that used to work at this restaurant, and he was just like the cheapest manager. And it just never made sense to you, right? Because a lot of times in these corporate restaurants, you know, repairs, they reflect on the manager's budget. I mean, the manager's bonuses. So if he didn't have to make a lot of repairs, a lot of restaurants have changed this, but in the past, if they had to make a lot of repairs, then their bonus wasn't as big. So the managers would get really cheap and not call, right? So his walk-in cooler iced up, and the manager decided to de-ice it himself. And this was a rather smart guy. At least I thought he was smart, okay? Because he, as a normal manager that I would expect to be a very competent person, okay? I still know this guy. He took a steak knife to the back of the evaporator coil and chipped away the ice and punctured the evaporator coil. And it was so bad that it was, and this guy was always a pain to me, that when I went in there, he calls my walk-in cooler's not working. And we go out there and I go, dude, someone stuck a steak knife in the back of the evaporator coil for this walk-in. I have to change the evaporator now on overtime. That was like a $9,000 job because he didn't want to call me out and spend $400 to de-ice his walk-in cooler. I loved that phone call to the corporate office. Hey, this particular manager just stuck a steak knife through there because he didn't want to de-ice. He didn't want to call me out to de-ice the coil. And that was a really cool phone call. That was a funny one too, because me and the other techs that had to change that evaporator on overtime in the middle, you know, I think it was a Saturday or something. We were laughing the entire time. It was the funniest thing. Just one of those silly moments where it was, here's your sign, bud. All right. Let's see what else we got. What does an evaporator coil sensor do, and could it cause a Charleston single door freezer to ice up? Heavy metal guitarist. Yes, it can. Okay, so on the Charleston freezers, they have an adaptive temperature controller, meaning that the temperature controller controls the defrost. So because it has adaptive defrost in it, it has an evaporator sensor and a cabinet sensor on the Charleston. And it looks at the cabinet sensor and the evaporator sensor while it's in defrost. It doesn't want the cabinet temperature, that's the space temperature within the box, to get too high, but it also doesn't want the evaporator to get too warm. And it actually uses the evaporator temperature sensor as a means of defrost termination. If the evaporator coil gets too warm, then it says, hey, all the ice is gone, so therefore it stops the defrost. Or as it's going through its normal cycle, let's say 4 times a day it wants to do a defrost, it'll look at that evaporator and sensor and say, hey, you know what? It's not even that cold in the evaporator. Don't do a defrost. So if you have a failed evaporator sensor on a Charleston, it will cause it to ice up because the adaptive defrost will do its job and it'll say, hey, I don't need to defrost. The sensor says the coil's fine, so it'll skip a defrost. But if the sensor's bad, it may be iced up completely. So one of the more common failures on the Charleston freezers is the sensors. Whenever I change the sensors, I change the cabinet sensor and the coil sensor, a blue and a green sensor together as a set. No questions asked. It's super easy. I mean, it's time consuming, but once you figure it out, it's rather easy to do. And yes, that sensor can cause the box to ice up. Let's see. What do we got going on here? Timothy asks me, oh, that's a great question. Timothy is clearly not a service technician, and that is okay. Okay, there's nothing wrong with service techs or people that are not service techs watching my videos, because it can help them grow and know the questions to ask service techs and things like that. So Timothy asks me, when I changed a compressor in a recent video, I'm assuming he isn't a service tech because of the question, okay? But it's okay if he is. He said, in a recent video where I had a bad compressor, why did I reuse the refrigerant? Okay, he said, wasn't the refrigerant burnt? Not necessarily. Just because a compressor is bad doesn't mean the refrigerant's bad, okay? So I'm not always going to try to sell my customer everything new, okay? And if the refrigerant's fine, if the compressor just failed because it had a bad valve and it wasn't a catastrophic burnout or something, I have no problem using the refrigerant unless I can, think that there's some kind of contamination. But no, I'll reuse refrigerant all day long. Burnt refrigerant means that there was a catastrophic electrical failure in the compressor, and there was essentially an electrical fire within the hermetically sealed compressor, and it burnt the refrigerant. Okay, so then yes, you really do want to change that refrigerant if it has been burnt for sure. Okay, why? I'm not even going to answer that question. Brad had pointed out made a point that in my recent video where I was working on the glycol chiller that I had skipped some critical steps, and had I not skipped those steps, maybe I wouldn't have had such a hard time working on that glycol unit. And that is a great point, Brad. Think about something though, Brad. it would have been very easy for me to edit that video in a way that I didn't show my mistakes, okay? I think mistakes are one of the most important things that we can own up to and learn from. So I make mistakes. I'm a seasoned mechanic, okay? But I screw up sometimes. Sometimes I forget things, and that's okay as long as we learn from it. That day I had an apprentice with me. He made a mistake, but it was essentially my mistake because he's under my wing and I was watching him and I didn't catch the mistake, and that was front seating the service valve. But that's okay because he learned from it. Now, if my apprentice continues to make that same mistake over and over again, then we're going to have a conversation, okay? But owning up to your mistakes, showing your mistakes, guys, we all make them. And if you guys are out there saying you don't make mistakes, you're lying to yourself and you're lying to everybody else too, because everybody makes mistakes. It's how we grow from them that really matters, okay? So I choose to show my mistakes. In the very beginning of making these YouTube videos, I used to get like an imposter syndrome. Sometimes I still do get the imposter syndrome feeling, right? Where I feel like I'm not worthy of the comments and all that stuff, whatever. But I used to get an imposter syndrome because in the very beginning, I wouldn't show mistakes, you know, and it's like, man, this isn't real. You know, I need to be real and I need to show mistakes. And it's not about views for me. It's about sharing the knowledge. And if the views come from that, then so be it. Okay. This is kind of a whole tangent, but I get people asking me all the time, how did your YouTube channel grow to be so big? Or how do I get my YouTube channel to be as big as yours? And how come your videos are so successful? Whatever. Okay. Define success. I don't know the answer to it. Okay. But the advice I can give about YouTube is probably going to be the worst advice you guys will ever hear, okay, is don't try. When people email me and they say, hey, I'm a new creator, I want to start making videos, how do I do it? Don't try so hard. Just put it out there. Be yourself, okay? I try to be myself as much as possible. People will email me and they'll say, hey, how can you justify charging the customer to film a video, and how is that fair? Okay, I've explained this a bunch of times. I'll explain it again. I am a bit crazy in my head. And the way that I troubleshoot is I talk to myself verbally. I literally will, as I'm troubleshooting things, just like I do with my phone, I will talk to myself. And I say, okay, it's not this, it's not that. How do I check this? Oh, hey, dummy, don't do that. I talk myself through the calls. So turning on my phone is no different, okay? So I show my mistakes. Okay, I am human. I try to be as honest as possible. Let's see what we got going on in the chat. There you go. Jason says he doesn't make mistakes. He makes oh shits, aw fucks, and god damn it's. Wait, isn't this supposed to be a censored show? Uh-oh. No. Let me see what else. In Measure Quick, how much of profiling do I put in when I use it? John Cruz, really not that much, dude. If I'm working on a package unit in Measure Quick, I will profile the equipment because you need that for airflow requirements. But to be honest with you, majority of the information I use from Measure Quick is just data, and I'll kind of field analyze it myself. So if I'm working on a refrigeration system, I use Measure Quick just to consolidate superheat and subcooling, evaporator TD, condenser TD, just so I don't have to do the math in my head. If I'm working on a package unit, I will definitely input the profiling information. I typically don't do electrical information because I could care less about SEER output and stuff like that in EER. I'm more or less looking at airflow, which in order to get airflow in Measure Quick, you need your psychrometers in there, you need the tonnage, you need the CFM per ton that you want to move, and then you can start calculating the airflow. But I use that as a Measure Quick thing, and I'll put in the tonnage and that kind of stuff, okay? But I typically don't really use the troubleshooting very much. Occasionally when I'm curious about, you know, my troubleshooting, I'll click on the troubleshooting icon and kind of see where it's at. But I'll be honest with you, Measure Quick is not really set up for commercial package units in general, and that's what I do majority of my stuff with. So you're not always going to get the most accurate troubleshooting information. Measure Quick, every commercial package unit I work on has air duct leakage. Well, yeah, they all do because they have economizer ducts and they're mixing fresh and outside air. So you're always going to see air duct leakages on those and stuff. Okay. So, it just really depends on what I'm working on, but you have to know that like, it's not always going to be exact. Okay. Measure Quick is on point when it comes to residential split systems, and residential package units. It does pretty good as long as you install the air probes in the right places. One of the most important things that I've learned about Measure Quick is about installing your probe placement. And you don't want your probes anywhere near your evaporator, but that's not very practical when you're working on commercial package units because you're on the roof and you're typically not climbing into the ductwork or climbing 20 feet up into the air to get to the registers to put the the probes and stuff down in the building because there's customers down in there and stuff. So majority of the time when we're working on package units with Measure Quick, we're just shoving the probes in the return and supply, which is right next to the evaporator, the heat exchanger, whatever it may be. So you're not always going to get the most exact information from it. So you just have to know how to analyze that appropriately. Why is it that when I work on some of these reach-in coolers, or for instance, the glycol unit that I just worked on that was R22, why don't I just convert that refrigerant to another refrigerant? Okay, so I'm going to tell you guys that actually here in California, we have some regulations that say if we're working on particular pieces of equipment, we're actually supposed to legally convert the refrigerant over, especially if it's R404A. Not with R22. We're good to go with that, which is a whole nother thing. But with 404A, we're not supposed to use 404A anymore. So anytime you do any major system replacements, evaporator, condenser, TXV, compressor, you're supposed to convert the refrigerant over to a non-global warming, you know, insert whatever thing here, okay? But that's really not practical because majority of these small reach-in coolers and these packaged glycol units or beer chillers or whatever, they're not set up to have bigger condensing units. You know, something, if you're going to some of these alternative refrigerants, let's just say 448A. If you guys have done any research, let's just say you have a walk-in freezer, right? I just did this job. I have a walk-in freezer that I needed to replace the equipment on. Condensing unit, evaporator, and line set. The existing equipment was a 3 horsepower condensing unit with a 9,000 BTU evaporator, okay? The condensing unit was a bit big, but the evaporator was actually undersized when I did the load calculation on the equipment. Now, I converted that system over to 448A. When I did the load calculation, what you actually realize is that because of the glide and everything, you'll actually get more efficiency out of the evaporator. So an evaporator that's rated for like 10,000 BTUs is actually going to output closer to 13,000 BTUs with 448A. But the condensing unit is going to have to be upsized, okay, because it doesn't put out as much. So we ended up having to go with a 4 horsepower condensing unit with a, on the nameplate, a 10,000 BTU evaporator, but it's actually outputting like 13,000 BTUs in the ambient. So when it comes to converting some of these refrigerators over, it's not just as simple as putting a drop-in gas in there or changing it over to 404 because you're going to have to, or changing it from 404. These boxes aren't really meant for that. The line sizes aren't right and stuff. So it's not very practical to take some of this packaged refrigeration equipment and convert it to other refrigerants. You're going to open up Pandora's box and run into a headache of problems. 448A runs really high discharge temps. So especially on the low temps, and I kind of think they should do it on the medium temps too, but on the low temps, you have to use liquid injection to cool off the compressor because the compressor just overheats and gets way too hot with 448A. But the medium temperature equipment in these really hot kitchens is going to run into that same problem too. So I just really kind of avoid converting this equipment over and I just keep it what it is, and when it's time to replace it, I encourage the customer to go with something more efficient or whatever. But I'm not really into reinventing the wheel when it comes to these refrigerators and things like that. Even the air conditioners, I try to, as long as the customer's okay with it, I still use R22 to this day. So I already answered that question. Let me get to the chat and see what's going on in here. What did I miss? I'm seeing what I'm missing. I'm done with my questions. So, how often do I calibrate my S-man gauges? I mean, I just make sure they're zeroed out before I put them on the system. I really don't use the temperature clamps on my S-mans very often. If I'm going to try to get superheater subcooling, I just use my probes. And my probes, every time I check them, they've been good and calibrated. So, we're almost there, guys. We're almost to 300 likes. If you guys could get that over, I'd really, really appreciate it. You just saw a huge jump in price for R22 up here. How have you been dealing with the phase out? Storm, it's ridiculously expensive down here. I want to say, I don't think I've bought R22 in probably a month. And the last time I bought it, I want to say it was over $800 for a 30-pound jug. I'm sure it's higher than that now. Let's see what else we got going on in here. If I missed your guys' questions, repost them because I'm paying attention to the chat now. Have I had to change a compressor because managers kept unplugging the evaporator fan motors? No, I can't say I have, but I have seen problems with like Heatcraft's intelligent evaporator where the manager kept turning off the evaporator because it was icing up. because the EEV was actually sticking open. The coil had failed on it, so it wasn't ever shutting the EEV down. And the manager kept turning off the evaporator because they thought they were de-icing it. It didn't ruin the compressor, but I'm surprised it didn't, because that thing, again, the EEV was stuck open, so it was constantly running. That's why it was freezing their food. But then the manager just shut off the box because they thought it was defrosting it, but the EEV was stuck open. So that compressor was just flooding back. But no, it never failed. The compressor never failed. Knock on wood. That was like a year and a half ago, and it's still running. I made a video on it. Can a beer walk-in be too cold, I think was the title or something. Let's see what else we got in here. Yeah, so it looks like you guys are saying $1,000 for a 30-pound tank. Yeah, it's getting up there. Let me see what else would be. What's going on in here? I see you guys talking to someone. I don't know who it is. What else do we got in here? What am I missing? I walk around with Speedo asking people to see. What the hell is this? Sometimes I read a question out loud and it's like, wait a minute. Stop reading that one, Chris. Do I ever work on a pop machine? No, I don't work on soda machines. I've done ice machines on the soda machines before. They're a pain in the butt. Let's see what else we got. Have I ever... I already answered that question. Did I know that Linux owns Heatcraft? Yeah, that's a new thing that actually just happened within the last couple of years. I'm surprised that they let Linux buy Heatcraft because of monopoly rules and stuff. That one kind of surprised me. You know that at one point in time, what is it, Wellbuilt, who owns Manitowoc, all the refrigeration equipment. They own Delfield, a bunch of different ones. They had made a purchase. I don't know if it was when Wellbuilt happened or whatever, but they had made a purchase where they bought Isomatic too. And then the antitrust, whatever stuff got involved and made them sell Isomatic because it was too much of a monopoly. But it's funny. It was too much of a monopoly when you were dealing with the ice machines, but Wellbuilt can own everything else. And I think Wellbuilt was just bought by someone too. They're just such a big company. They own everything. Why did I want to be an HVACR service technician? Well, I started working as a kid with my father, watching him do this. After high school, so I grew up in the trade. And then after high school, I went to work at a body shop working on cars, because all through high school I took like auto collision classes and stuff. So I got a job at a body shop and I worked there for about a year and a half, a year after high school. And then actually 2 years, a year while in high school and then a year after high school. And one day I just looked at my boss, and it was a really nice guy, but it just wasn't what I wanted to do anymore. So I had asked my dad, hey, can I come to work for you? That was in 2002, actually. And actually 2001. And he was like, yeah, come on in, and here we are now. We run the company together now. My dad doesn't really work in the field at all anymore. He just works in the office, comes in. He still comes in every day, though, but if I let him, he would retire yesterday for sure. So, I see, guys, I think I missed super chats in here and stuff. Thank you so very much. I think I saw a bunch come through while I've been talking. You guys are amazing. And in fact, I think what I'm going to do... Is there a way that I could see super chats? I don't know how to do that. See, if I was smarter about this, you guys, viewer activity, no super chat. Yeah, there is. Dude, I've seen so many super chats come through. If I didn't address them, thank you guys so very much. I've seen a bunch, and I just realized there's been a bunch of stickers and different things going on here. You guys are amazing, and it's so humbling to get the support that you guys give. Let's see what else we got in here. What am I missing? Tips to get better engagement from your apprentice through the day. Oh, that's a good question. So how do you get better engagement from your apprentice? Ask him questions. Give him the opportunity. Now, there's times that I have the time to let my apprentice just take his time. Today, he was on the roof, and we were changing a condenser fan motor and a compressor contactor, and I just said, I trust him. So I said, change the compressor contactor and get the condenser fan motor out, and I went to the supply house for a half an hour. I didn't have him turn it on. I checked it and everything when I got back. And he did a great job, and so I just try to let him do things. Now, for me, the difficult thing is when I'm letting my apprentice do things, I just want to get in there and do it because I typically have something else to do. If I feel confident that he can do it, it's best for me to walk away and then come back a few minutes later. Because if I'm standing there, I'll be like, nope, don't do it like that. Nope, don't do it like that. Nope, don't do it like that. The best thing is when you can let your apprentice make mistakes that you know he's making. Sean Peterson, thank you so very much for that super chat, man. And Chinggis? Okay. So the apprentice, you know, the best thing is for me to let him go, you know, do things while I walk away, and then ask him questions. I quiz him. Okay, so we had a bad contactor. Why did it fail? What would have caused it to fail? What are some things that a bad contactor would do? You know, pressure control is not working. What's that going to do? How's that going to happen? You know, how's that going to affect the system? Let him answer it. You don't got to make him feel like he's under pressure. Make it more like a conversation. That's the way I do it. I don't know if that's right, but I just approach it that way. Okay. And guys, I've not always been that way. I learned to become a better mentor when it comes to talking to people and stuff. I'm sure there's guys, maybe even people watching the stream right now that have apprenticed under me that have moved on to bigger, better things. And they remember me when I was probably just a butthead or an asshole. There's been times. Okay. So, you know, I'm not perfect at all. All right. Know any good study guides for the journeyman test? Jonathan, I don't, but I'm sorry. You may want to reach out to Curious HVAC guy. Bill may have some ideas about study guides. I don't know. Maybe. Let's see what else in here. Know of any good study guide? I already answered that one. Half ton, 3/4 ton. I'm not going to go there. I think Jason Johnson's trying to mess with me. Let's see. Can you do a Chinggis giveaway? I don't have a Chinggis to give away. I have a beer opener Chinggis, but I can't part ways with this because I need it. So, trying to switch to being more friendly about things and talk about other stuff to get them talking. Yeah, okay, the talking about other things, though, there's a fine line there. Okay, because you don't want an apprentice to think that it's okay to goof off all day long. You got to stay serious, but it's also okay to have a little bit of a friendly conversation for sure. That's a good thing. Also, don't set a bad example for your apprentice and stare at your phone all day long, because that just opens the door to them staring at their phones all day long. Ong Thea or Tia, I don't know if I butchered your name, but thank you so very much for that super chat, man. That is amazing. Oh, that is awesome, bud. That is really great. I'm happy that my videos have helped you. That is amazing. Thank you so very much for that super chat, bud. You are awesome, okay? Let me see what I got going on here. Would I be able to... My wife is asking me a question. Yes. Give me a minute to end it. My wife is asking me if I can pick up my daughter from practice, and I said yes. Let's see what else we got in the chat. You guys, so humbling. Thank you so very much for those super chats. This is awesome. Okay. Am I training still? Yes. My apprentice is, still working with me. Oh, it is official too. I haven't said anything on social media. One way or another, I will be at the HVACR training or HVACR school training symposium here in February in, Claremont, Florida at the Kalos headquarters with Brian Orr. I plan on being there in person, but you know, that may change. Either way, I'll either be doing an online presentation or an in-person presentation at the training event in Florida here in February. If you guys have any interest in that, check out hvacrschool.com. It'll pop up right when you go to the website. That is Brian Orr's website, and he does this amazing training event. This will be the 3rd year running. I was physically at the 1st year. The 2nd year, I did an online presentation. Let's hope that I can do a physical presentation at this 3rd year. That will be really cool. I will also be at the AHR trade show tentatively. I'm sure I'll be hanging out at the Sporlin booth at the AHR trade school. It will be in Las Vegas this year at the end of January. That is something I'm really looking forward to because Vegas is only a couple hours away from my house. So that'll be an easy one for me to attend. Let's see. What else do we got going on in here? How do you adjust a TXV? Are all TXVs adjustable, and how can you tell? No, all TXVs are not adjustable. They typically have a removable nut on the bottom of the TXV, and you only adjust a TXV once the system has stabilized and or close to the set point temperature, and then you can start adjusting things accordingly. But before you start wrenching on a TXV, you always want to check to make sure that it does not have any restrictions going to it. Make sure that the filter dryer before the TXV is not plugged up on the liquid line. Make sure that the strainer is not plugged up on the TXV. In refrigeration, restaurants and stuff like that, walk-in coolers, our TXVs typically will have a inlet strainer on them, and you can pump the system down, pull the strainer, and clean it. A lot of your failures are typically in the strainer. Your refrigerant charge needs to be correct. Your coils need to be cleaned. There can't be any ice anywhere on the coils. The condenser cannot be dirty. Don't ever adjust the TXV until all of that stuff is taken care of in 100%. Then you can start adjusting the TXV, but be cautious because you can really go in the wrong direction if you don't know what you're doing with that. Let me see. Am I going to iHacky? Yeah, Kevin Corona. I will be at iHacky too. That is the plan. iHacky is my local trade show. It'll be in November of this year in Pasadena, California. That's like an hour and a half away from my house. I do plan on being there probably majority of the day. I usually go early in the morning and then stay till mid-afternoon or something like that. So that will be the plan. And I will announce that on social media too, for sure. So, all right. I am going to wrap this up, guys. It is time for me to go. I have to go pick up my daughter from the cheerleading field thing, softball field, whatever it is. I really, really appreciate you guys. You guys are amazing. To everybody that donated via Super Chats and to all of you that watch the videos on a regular, you guys are amazing. Thank you so very much. I really, really appreciate you. Remember that I go live on the HVAC Overtime YouTube channel with my buddies on Friday nights, about 6:05 p.m. Pacific. I'm going to post a link in the chat right now. If you guys haven't already, go over and subscribe to the HVAC Overtime channel. And hopefully we'll catch you this Friday evening. If not, hopefully we'll see you next Monday. Okay? I really, really appreciate you guys. Remember, be kind to one another, okay? There's a lot of craziness going on. And we were having a conversation before this stream started with my buddy Rich. I don't think he's in here anymore. We need more kindness, guys. We need more empathy. We need more patience, okay? This is crazy times. Just love one another. Be kind to one another, okay? That's the best advice I can give to everybody. I'm going to go ahead and cue up the outro music. You guys are amazing. I really, really appreciate you. And we will catch you guys on the next one. One of these days I'm going to troll you guys and just have an image of me just staring at the screen and leave it on there for like 40 minutes and just let you guys keep commenting about nothing. I think that'd be pretty funny, actually. All right, I really appreciate you guys. I'm going to go ahead and end this. You guys are